Okay, so bonus segment here. We're joined by Sam Fakani. That's how you pronounce it, right?
It's Fakahani, but you're
I don't know that I never actually articulate. I've known you for years, and I don't think I've ever actually spoken your last name out loud.
There's a very dumb, silly pronunciation guide that my dad likes to give out.
Okay.
It's fan, cat, hat. The vowel sounds you make in those words are what you make in my last name.
Well, I apologize for that. I just realized before I was about to say that despite knowing you for years, I have never actually
it's
verbalized your name. Okay. And also joined by Megan. So, any observations so far about the inaugural weekend, just in terms of what's going on in D.C., anecdotes, anything else that stands out?
I'd say Middle America is here.
Are they?
Middle America is here. On my way here, I got a little bit turned around, and there was not one person who knew even the street corners. You know, every person I talked to, I'm from Ohio, I'm from Indiana. Someone is from Altoona, Pennsylvania, is very excited. This is the very first inauguration they've ever attended. So that's one thing. I mean, I've never seen the street so filled with, I guess, newcomers or visitors, especially since Biden's inauguration was, quite sparsely attended in comparison.
Right. Well, because there were still COVID restrictions,
yes.
right? And probably maybe less enthusiasm to attend compared to Trump among a core of supporters.
I think that's what's key. I've passed so many people bundled up, and they all have their Trump gear on.
Well, what are they going to be doing tomorrow now that it's indoors? Like, that might be interesting for me to observe. Like, how do people who spent money on travel, hotel, etc., thinking that they're going to be able to observe the inauguration?
Exactly.
What are they going to do? Are they going to go to the Capital One Arena? I would feel a little gypped, potentially, if I had, planned for months to come see it in person, and then because it's going to be approximately the same temperature as the Obama inauguration in 2009, they decided to cancel it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was here for that. That was really cool.
You were here for that?
I was here for the Obama inauguration in 2009. Yeah, and it was cold, but it wasn't catastrophically cold.
What did you do?
The logistics were a nightmare, and people were getting stuck under bridges and stuff. What did I do? I just watched it.
No. I mean, where were you? And then
I was on the mall somewhere. I forgot I had a ticket through a Congress. Somebody gave me a ticket that they got through a local congressman and whatever. So I went.
So I think, I don't know what it was like then if everyone just showed up. Well, that was also it was a historic moment. But these people have so much loyalty that I don't think they feel gypped at all. They're happy to be here. Right. Yeah, everyone is completely bundled up. A lot of these people you can tell are not thrown by the weather at all. And whatever they do, Trump could cancel the whole thing and they wouldn't be upset.
Yeah,
they would go and stand outside the fence of the White House and just cheer him on.
Trump plays golf tomorrow.
Yes, and they'd all go. They'd find a way to to watch it. No, not at all. And I don't think any of them are privy to or any of the events that are happening across the city. They're just here to watch.
Just to be present, to make space.
Yes.
To hold space, sorry.
Do you think a lot of the local DC people are vacating and they're I'm going to get out of here for this weekend? Have you noticed that at all?
Actually, yes. I had a meeting earlier today, and there was supposed to be another person there, and that person at the very last minute was oh, sorry, I'm actually in the car on my way to Pennsylvania. At the very last minute, I think there are quite a few people who don't want to be around for this. But then also in my neighborhood, there's a historic house. It was actually built around the time of Woodrow Wilson's inauguration. And for the very first time, they're accepting visitors. They put out an ad saying we have bedrooms open for the inauguration. We're going to vet each person, but we haven't opened up this house to visitors. In 20 years, I think it was 25 years. Wow. Yeah, not since I think the first George Bush inauguration. Wow. Yeah.
So we closed out our last segment with a profound question posed by me for everybody to contemplate. It was, what is the worst case scenario for the upcoming Trump administration, and what is the best case scenario in your mind? And I gave my tentative answer as to the others, but I don't think we got an answer from Megan nor Sam.
Gosh,
so putting you on the spot. Yeah. So what's the best case and worst case scenario? And then from 4 years to the day from now, we'll come back and reevaluate, assuming there's still life on Earth, which I'm assuming that there will be. But if we're alive which, God willing, we will be. We'll come back and judge how right or wrong our respective premonitions were.
Yes.
Megan, you're first.
I also have an observation about this. I've noticed over the past week, and maybe it's because of the ceasefire deal, I have gotten a lot of messages from my friends who are very anti-Trump saying that they're actually optimistic for the next 4 years and that they, were disappointed with the election, but now they're very kind of resigned about it and even maybe looking forward to the next 4 years. And maybe that could be, and something artificial sort of, with the inauguration and Trump's meme coin, so exciting, which is, oh gosh. But I think the best case scenario is, I don't know, in politics, it's like, hopefully that nothing happens. And I don't know. I would like to see a lot of sensible cuts maybe in the government. I know Doge is a scammy enterprise, but I think if they were actually to follow through on that, which I really doubt it, that would be great just to get rid of government bloat. Also, like, if there's truly peace over the next 4 years, I think that would be the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, oh gosh, there could be so many bad case scenarios. Like, it'd be interesting if there were another assassination attempt. I don't know what that would bring about.
Just to reprise my answer to the question, maybe I'll inform your answer, but mine was basically the best case scenario. I narrowed my answer to something that I think is probably likely to happen, which is that the incoming Republican professional class and the people that Trump is installing to various positions, they're very much disenchanted with the nonprofit censorship complex where like these scam NGOs get government subsidies to regulate the internet in the name of countering misinformation or disinformation. I think that's like going to be flushed out probably. So that's a positive thing that I have every reason to celebrate because I would have been against it whoever was in charge. And then, but my worst case scenario is more of kind of an ambiguous, just kind of premonition that I have that I can't prove one way or another. But I contrast it with how I felt in 2017. In 2017, I was like one on the enemy's list of the resistance.
Yes.
You probably recall that.
Absolutely, yes.
And because I thought that they were were propounding these overwrought, histrionic kind of depictions of Trump. Russiagate was a big influence to that, where they were claiming, obviously, that Trump had been nefariously installed into power by Putin, tampering with voting machines and so forth. And so a lot of my energy was spent kind of counteracting some of that narrative because I thought a lot of it did have very adverse consequences, particularly around Russiagate, kind of incentivizing bellicosity toward Russia, which came to a 4 years later. And now we're in the point where we're like in a nuclear brinksmanship essentially with the world's largest nuclear superpower, in part I think to like political dynamics that stemmed from that early resistance period and how it intersected with Russiagate. That's my intersectionality that I choose to focus on. Whereas now, maybe ironically, I find myself in a little bit of a different situation just in terms of how I'm interpreting things, where I think the so-called resistance has been basically eradicated. There were 5,000 people at the so-called People's March yesterday compared with the Women's March in 2017, which the New York Times said was like the biggest day like in aggregate of demonstrations in American history. And now it's just like barely even a whimper. And so I do wonder if there's something on the horizon that I think maybe people aren't attuned to, that I feel like a premonition about, that I think could also relate to Trump having a really historically powerful cult of personality behind him. I'm not saying that every Trump voter obviously is a member of a cult of personality, but there is a Trump cult of personality that's very potent, very politically salient, particularly within the Republican Party. So I mentioned to the guys I was talking to before, I think back to the Soleimani assassination in 2020, when all of a sudden overnight, the whole MAGA movement seemingly was of the belief that doing a drone strike assassination of the top Iranian general who was on like a diplomatic mission to Iraq was like America First foreign policy. I feel like I have just this premonition, again, that I can't prove or disprove, just an intuition or a premonition, that something like that could be on the offing. And I feel like it's going to be incredibly difficult, especially given the depletion of the opposition, for anybody to counteract.
To tamper down. You kind of saw that a little bit with their attitude toward the Ukraine spending bill, or at least that was one of the first things I noticed. Like they were able to quickly rebrand that, like with just,
as America First.
Yeah, like with lightning speed. So I guess as far as my predictions go, so worst case scenario, I think, or no, we'll start with best. That's what you did, Megan. So we'll start with best. I've been noticing the same thing that you had. And in a way, I mean, if I were to put it bluntly, it's like I feel like, you know, none of us are going to die in a nuclear blast anytime soon. I feel like optimistic about that. And I think that what we were saying about, or what you were saying about Doge is I do think that there are going to be cuts to the Pentagon. It was kind of, you know, heartening to see people be receptive to that idea, and like I think that they actually are going to follow through on that. And I guess one particular thing I'm kind of excited to see is what this administration does with education. I'm not super hopeful, but I do think that they are going to try and cut some of the bloat. And if they go after some of these, like what we were saying with the NGOs and the censorship complex, there's a lot of that with education as well. If they're able to go past trimming the fat and just, you know, focus their energies on these people who managed to accumulate more bloat within the past 4 years, that would be a wonderful thing to see, you know. So I'm hopeful they can do it. I don't know if they were going to do it. I don't think they're going to do it in my preferred way, but I'm sure that they will tackle that. So that's my best case scenario. I think we'll see that. I think we will see more resistance to censorship. I think even what's happening right now with the TikTok ban, like if we're going to leave it for the Trump administration, I don't think that he's going to follow through on it, or even, you know, I think he might try to take steps to oppose it if that's possible. So that would be my best. And my worst is very similar to what you were saying. I think what's going to happen is I don't think the resistance is going to pop up again, but there are the seeds planted. That the People's March yesterday, I actually ran into quite a few people who are coming back from that, and it was hilarious how much they were like in a time capsule. Like,
yeah, it's like an anachronism, right?
Yeah, like even like someone was wearing like one of the old pussy hats from 2017. Some of the signs were, you know, like bands off our bodies. I was like, what? Where is this coming from?
Did you know of the witches you couldn't learn?
Did you know that we talked about this earlier? The woman who created the prototype for the pussy hat, a knitter, she knitted the original pussy hat. She was interviewed in an article today by the New York Times. And she admitted that she's not even bothering to do any protesting this year. The actual person who invented the pussy hat
is just checked out.
Yep.
That makes me feel a little bit better, actually. But I think, you know, there's deeper polarization now than there was then. I've heard some people, you know, they postulated that Trump has been detoxified, or that we as Americans, especially after 2020, have been getting less political across the board. I'd say that's both good and bad for the reasons that you're talking about. There is no opposition if Trump decides to, you know, I think if there are policies that we don't like, or if he decides to pursue a more aggressive...
Say if something happens with Taiwan.
Yeah, then it's going to be branded as America First
America
immediately.
First.
Yeah. He can do anything on that front, and it will just kind of be folded.
I mean, just look at how, you know, Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz and even Hegseth have all seamlessly rebranded as America First, where if we're going to be using the neocon nomenclature, just as a couple of years ago, they would have been like paradigmatic examples of that tendency, but they show how seamless it is for many of these people to just assimilate into the America First moniker, because there really aren't really strictly defined boundaries of what that even constitutes.
It's because neocon now just means Bush conservative, which at once, you know, at one point that did mean also having aggressive foreign policy, but now they use it as a shorthand, like you're the old guard. But then, as you said, a lot of these people seamlessly transitioned into the new guard, and they didn't have to do much to earn that status. They just had to kind of, you know, spout off a few platitudes, maybe appear at a couple rallies, and then like they convert. That's one thing about the movement, is that they are accepting, they're open-minded, they take everyone, they take Rubio, they take
that could be their fall though. Like if everything is around this one person, you know, I don't know. And you already saw like fractures within the MAGA movement, like around Christmas time over the H-1B debate. I don't know how long this coalition of very different people can last, especially when it's just built around one person.
Because it really is about fidelity to Trump. Like sometimes that can be overstated by liberals who want to call the entire Trump phenomenon just a call, and that's not true. But there is a component where the one, demanded quality that. The one non-negotiable quality that one must have in order to be in good standing right now within the Republican Party is fidelity to Trump. Like, I don't think that's disputable. There's no, you can have a million different policy preferences, but it all gets subsumed into personal fidelity to Trump. And that's reflected in his endorsements. Like, if you look at, if you try to discern a through line ideologically in his endorsements, you'll never find one other than professing personal allegiance to Trump.
Oh, no, there's one more. Someone who's telegenic, someone who can hold their own on a panel.
He endorses plenty of non-telegenic candidates for Congress and stuff.
But that's true.
Well, he'll endorse anyone, even the most decrepit 80-year-old guy or whatever who's basically dead.
Are they entertaining on a panel? I feel like is the other through line. Can you hold your own on TV? Are you good at public appearances? Even if you're an old 80-year-old guy who's been in office since Reagan or beforehand.
Yeah. So anyway, I think, he's at the peak of his political purchase at the moment. I think inevitably that's going to be waning because he is, very anomalous in American history. He's immediately like a lame duck, if you want to put it that way. Can't run for re-election unless, some of my liberal New York Times reading friends are correct, and he actually is going to try to abolish the 22nd Amendment and run for a second term, which I don't think is at all plausible.
Pretty
I don't know
old,
how he
too.
would do that. Yeah. Well, he would be 82 in 2028, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible, but that's not at all plausible to me, really. So it's probably likely that his political purchase will wane from its current peak, right? So then we'll have to see how the various factions within the conservative movement or Republican coalition comport themselves to a different dynamic where the singular unflinching principle isn't necessarily only just allegiance to Trump, but a variety of other things. Obviously, you have to be anti-woke as well, but that's goes without saying. There's going to probably emerge a dynamic where they have to kind of figure out what their niche is beyond just supporting Trump.
Or opposing the left.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a question for you, actually.
Oh.
Do you think that J.D. Vance will be the successor, or do you think there's going to be some jostling atop the podium? Do you think someone's going to try to be the next person in line for the MAGA movement or for the Republican Party?
I think it depends what happens in this term. If it's seen as a successful term by Republicans, then I think J.D. Vance will be the quasi-incumbent and therefore the immediate front-runner for the nomination in 2028. But there could be some crisis. There could be something that goes awry, and therefore he might not have the standing to run. I mean, look at Mike Pence. He thought that he could be the incumbent. He thought that I still don't understand why he ran for president, really. But I think that the way to think about presidential nomination contests is that anybody who thinks that they have a remotely plausible chance will at least make some initial efforts to come up with a campaign operation, even if they don't officially announce. So I would be surprised if he had a complete free path to the nomination. But I think a lot of it depends on how successful the second term is. But yeah, I think as of now, he's probably seen as the
next in line.
Next in line. The next to be coronated, just like the coronation ball happened. All right, we will now, I think, wrap up. We've been going for a long time. Thank you to Spotify for hosting us. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And keep your eyes peeled for more, as always. Take care.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.